We're talking about Fatherhood. And nobody's pregnant, blessed so, at least not to my knowledge. But Fatherhood is the new Netflix movie, the latest Netflix dramedy. It's directed by Paul Weitz. Paul Weitz, probably best known as the man who directed the first American Pie movie. He also directed Nutty Professor 2, The Clumps. More recently, he directed the movie Grandma, which nobody saw. And that was an okay movie. It had Lily Tomlin in it, and Julia Garner was in that one. That was an all right movie, came out a few years ago. But now he's back with Fatherhood starring Kevin Hart in a very against type performance. I'm probably going to use that phrase quite a bit, against type, for Kevin Hart, because this is probably his sharpest pivot into drama yet. Would we agree?
Yeah, I think so too. I don't really know that much about Kevin Hart's filmography. I just know that he's in a certain type of comedy most of the time, and he has a very particular style, very kind of big eye and loud style kind of thing. But this is, against type is going to be the key word here that we're probably going to repeat a million times, and rightfully so.
Absolutely.
No, I could just literally agree with you guys. I don't have much to say about the movie. Like I didn't think it was bad. I actually think this movie is actually good, and the reason why it's good is because it's just like, well, honestly, Kevin Hart went against type, and he did a good job. I honestly feel like with a better director, or not even a better director, but with another director like this, like Judd Apatow or something similar, I feel like, we can honestly see more performances like this of Kevin Hart. And honestly, man, I would take these performances any day over the typical, well, I'm black and I'm short, so I'm going to scream really loud performances that we see from him. Like, I do love the poster, how it is him in a crib because of his size. But honestly, it just works. And it honestly...
I didn't even notice that.
it works, though. Like, I was just like, okay, that works. It's subtle, but, like, it's also kind of cute. He is laying in bed with his daughter.
His knees are up.
Yeah. But yeah, no,
it is a little play on that, though.
I thought, like, overall, like, if there is something worth watching about this movie, like, it does have its flaws and everything. Kevin Hart is not one of the flaws of the movie, and neither is the rest of the cast either. I would say the cast in general actually has really good chemistry with each other. But this ends Kevin Hart's like, hey, look at me, I can do something else now too. Please hire me to do something else.
I completely agree there. This movie, for one thing, is based on Matthew Loughlin's memoir, Two Kisses from Maddie. This is based on a true story, and that chronicled his life following the tragic death of his wife, Liz, and his transition to being a full-time dad. Liz died shortly after giving birth to their daughter, Maddie. And can you imagine that? Can you imagine your wife going through, giving birth to your first kid and then dying soon after, and then, like, good luck. You know what I mean? You got to grieve and you got to raise a child. That's another, that is hell to comprehend. But Matthew Loughlin did it. And he also, just one last thing, he also, in the late aughts, he before this memoir, he got big based on his blog. His blog was known as, the long blog title, but it's a, lofty topic. It was called Matt, Liz, and Madeline, Life and Death, all in a 27-hour period, where it was kind of a reoccurring blog. And at one point, it racked up, I think, like 30,000 hits in the span of a very short amount of time. And you got to remember, this is 2007.
2007. Wow. Yeah, dude. The first 20 minutes, I don't want to I hope I didn't take away from you, Steve, but like the first 20 minutes of this movie are really compelling. And it's like, just the immediacy of the tragedy, it hits you hard. And it does a very important job of, drawing you in. And it really does do that. And like, just the details, man, it's like at the funeral party, where everyone's wearing black, how you do if you've experienced these kind of things. But except there's like a gift table and it's all like happy baby wrapping. And I'm like, holy shit, that's some real shit right there. Yeah. Oh boy, oh my God. And yeah, Steve, I don't know if get back to your point, but it hits real hard. Just that feeling of, oh crap, this is happening.
No, that duality was not lost on me in the beginning. That's an excellent point. And Joe actually really, really stole the sentence out of my mouth. That's what I was going to follow him up by saying, is that this movie does have flaws, but Hart doesn't bear any responsibility for them. He is the strongest anchor in this movie that is not great, but not bad. And I would say ultimately worth watching for the purpose of seeing Kevin Hart do something different. This movie, it's not as good. I want to say this because I don't know if you two have seen this one. It's not as good, but it's comparable. And it has a lot in common with Instant Family, the Mark Wahlberg, Rose Byrne dramedy from a few years back. It's got a lot in common. I don't know if you two saw that one, Instant Family.
I might have, like, just oh no, 2018. I don't think so.
That one was about two parents who adopted children. They were siblings, and for the most part, I think Instant Family did a little bit better, but it avoids the same kind of mawkishness as Instant Family did by kind of subverting formula. And I'll give an example with Fatherhood here, because Fatherhood does kind of have those mawkish moments. But the thing that's really nice is that early on in the movie, Matt, played by Kevin Hart, is given an ultimatum by his mother-in-law, Marion, played by Alfre Woodard. He's given an ultimatum where she tells him that if he cannot handle the responsibility of raising Maddie as a single parent, that he has to move back to Minnesota. And blessed so the movie doesn't let that linger over the plot.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like, I got to do this or I'm going to have to move. He's not like frantically calling his friends about this. He's not panicking. Like, the movie, even after setting up that, what I thought was going to be a really kind of death sentence ultimatum here for formula, it sets this thing up, but then it's like, it just shows him being a father in a very humanizing way. And I like that about this movie right off the bat. I was like, this movie's just kind of letting it breathe.
It was basically just a thing to finally just push him into it. But once he was in that bubble, like, he just stayed there, and it was fine. It was nice that the rest of the movie was just, okay, yeah, it's just him being a dad, and like, that's it. That's all you really need this movie to be, too.
I was waiting for the cliche where, it's like the last 10 minutes of the movie or something. Yeah. And it's like, she's at the airport because it's like, we're taking her back to Minnesota, and she's, the villain of the whole movie. And it's like, and then Kevin Hart runs to the airport, and then he does something. And then, he convinces her to not give up the child. And then they stay in what, I don't even remember, Boston, I think. Yeah, they stay in Boston. And, thankfully it wasn't that. Got replaced by some other cliches, but I'm really glad it wasn't that. And so
cliche honestly, still involving an airport.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what? Let me just say, after the first 20 minutes of like, it hits really hard, 15 to 20 minutes, it actually had a much lighter air than I thought it was going to be. It still plays very much into Kevin Hart's comedic sensibilities, which was good, playing to your strengths there. It wasn't a complete, I don't know, Will Smith, Ali kind of joint where I do need to watch the movie again, but it's like really hard Oscar bait kind of thing. And Kevin Hart plays it really well. I'm going to stay right now, 4 stars for Kevin Hart. Whatever rating I give, I'm going to give Kevin Hart 4 stars because maybe too much, but I was just impressed by it just because he manages to keep that sense of grief, just immense grief throughout the whole movie in everything he does without dragging the whole movie down, which is like almost contradictory because it's like, well, grief kind of drags everything down, but balancing that I was really impressed with how Kevin Hart was able to do that.
Yeah, I completely agree on that. And I'll say this too. Even what I liked, another thing I really did like about this movie, because I have one lurching negative with this thing, and I'll get into that in a minute. But the other thing I liked about this movie too, and I think that 4 years ago, when Kevin Hart was kind of at the apex, he's still one of the hottest names. Don't get me wrong, but there was a period of time when he was in damn near everything. You know what I mean? He's kind of pulled back a little bit. You know what I mean? When he was just kind of coming out of stand-up to being a movie star. I think like 4 years ago, this movie would have been a direct comedy. Yeah. Would have been a direct, outlandish, kind of like My Baby's Daddy style comedy, where it would have made him be like inept. And that's the thing I love about this movie. He's not perfect, but he's not stupid. He's not as like bumbling archetype as you think he is. And what I liked even more, and I don't think this movie tackles it enough, and it kind of ties into my negative here with White. There's in the third act, in the climax, without giving anything away, Matt changes around his friends. He changes his attitude and his tone, and he starts becoming very deprecating towards himself. And he starts saying, like, I did the bare minimum as a dad. I did the bare minimum as a parent. And his buddies are like, we didn't think you could do it, but you did it. And you overwhelmingly succeeded. But he's got these burdening feelings of uselessness because the whole damn movie he's been told how useless he is by his mother-in-law, and his own mother doesn't have much confidence in him. Like, that's real. And I love that about this movie, that it actually went there. It didn't go there enough in my opinion, but it went there. Like, there's a little tinge.
His friend too. His best friend says it as well. It's like, yeah, he's not ready for this. Like, everyone says it. Everyone doubts. And just seeing that triumph is amazing.
It's something always relatable, especially to any single parent, that you don't do enough, no matter like what. That, like, you know, it's such a common thing that, like, you know, for some reason there is a stigma when it's like, oh, it's time to raise the kid on your own. Like, are you really ready for this? And it makes you doubt yourself. And then you sometimes have those people that are literally like, nope, this person can't do it because, you know, they never were like that responsible in the first place. How the hell are they going to handle something this responsible all on their own? Which is, you know, a terrible thing to say to people. But no, I mean, it is something I wish the movie played with a little bit more. Maybe showing, like, you know, how much he really wanted to prove them wrong. Maybe having a conversation with his daughter in some sort of way. But yeah, it is something I wish they touched on a little more. But I'm glad it was brought up at least in some regard, especially towards the end. I do agree with that.
Yeah, I really appreciated that Weitz went there with the script. And, like, I actually just had a conversation this morning at work with one of my coworkers, and she had a kid. Her kid's now 2 years old, I believe. And we were talking. She was just talking about, you know, motherhood and, you know, raising her daughter and stuff. And like I said, I'm the least qualified person to talk about any of this. But it was funny though, because we were just chatting about it, and I said the thing that always amazes me, because now a lot of our friends are having kids, or I know friends that have kids and stuff like that, and I'm like, you know, the older I get, isn't it funny? I was telling her, I said, don't you realize, like, when you were a kid, your parents were infallible. They could do no wrong. Your parents had the answer for everything. Whenever you were scared, whenever you were hurt, whenever you were crying, they, like, you just looked to them and they were perfect in your eyes. And then you grow up to be the parent yourself, and you talk to your parents and stuff, and you're like, there's a lot of times we were friggin' winging it. Like, you know,
how did I live?
What to do?
How did I make it to this age?
You know, and she said her father, or my coworker's father, said at one point, she's like, at the end of the day, you got to keep them alive. Like, that's kind of what you have to do sometimes. You got to keep them alive, and you got to keep them fed and clothed. That's pretty much what you have to do. Like,
yeah, there weren't enough scenes of the baby here, you know, just constantly trying to do stupid things that would inevitably result in its own death, which is just what babies are. Just constantly trying to throw themselves off a cliff or something.
It's true though, like, because you have to teach it everything. And again, like, I can barely care for two cats over here. Yeah. Like, you have to teach kids everything, man. Like, they don't, like, you know, the bathroom, like, social skills, you know what I mean? Counting, like, I mean, it's exhausting. I'm still learning.
This is how you go down the stairs, one step at a time. Don't try to do this. Please grab the railing as you go down.
Well, first they gotta walk.
Yeah, there's that too, yeah. Please don't put your mouth near this outlet. Please don't stick anything in the outlet.
You know, stove is hot. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, I mean, it's senseless. Yeah. But it's true. They're a blank slate of a human being, and like. And I like how they portrayed, I forget what it's called, but in the movie, I'm just kind of stalling now. Briefly, we'll take our intermission. But they show that one thing, because I remember my father always tells me I had it for like 2 days straight when I was a baby. I think all babies do. It's that nonstop crying. Yeah. It's that nonstop crying where I don't remember the name of it. But like, they just, my father always tells me about it, because my father was like, it was the 2 worst days of my life. He's like, you would not shut up. He's like, you feed you, you know, hold you, rock you, nothing. He's like, you just have to let them cry. You know, they just don't know what to do. They don't know what to do with themselves. And that movie shows it in a very, like, lighthearted way. And it doesn't make, like, you know, it doesn't make too many jokes about it.